Hey everyone, welcome back. This is the third video in the Avenger holster series. In this video, I'm gonna go over how to wet form the holster and get it to fit your handgun pretty much perfectly. Let's get started. Okay, so I've prepared a tub of fresh cold water, and what we're gonna do is dip the holster into that water for about 15 seconds. This helps the leather become saturated with water, which allows the leather to basically stretch and conform to the shape of the handgun. Afterwards, we're gonna dry it at high heat to help bake that shape in place. So I'm gonna grip it right around the belt slot area and go ahead and dip it right in there. Kind of shake it a little bit. I'm counting slowly until about 15 seconds. And you're shaking it to help get the bubbles out so there's no dry spots on the inside. Now we need to prepare the rest of this belt slot that we left. Go ahead and knock that hole out. Use the razor to connect. All right, now we're gonna bevel that slot out. It'll help get rid of some of the red line that we left on there while we were tracing the template. All right, next we're gonna take our mallet, and just in the trigger guard area, we're gonna go ahead and open that area up a little bit. It'll make it a little easier to fit the handgun in. I'm just pushing this in. Moderate force. Right now you're gonna grab your weapon, make sure you have properly cleared it and is completely unloaded and safe. Now, here I'm using a blue model gun. I can stick this directly into a wet holster and not have a problem with it. Now, if you're using your actual handgun, what you're gonna do is take plastic wrap and wrap it a couple of times over the muzzle, slides, the trigger guard area, up to about this section right here. All right, I'm gonna take the weapon and push it gently, trying to get it centered in the leather. And I'm using the table to help push against as far down as it'll go. I'm using pretty good amount of force right at the end, but all the force is going right around this layer of leather down here. So it should be fine. All right, the next step is to form the groove where the front sight would go. So there needs to be enough room for that front sight to be able to slide down in there nicely. Because this is a model weapon, I've cut the front sight off and sanded it smooth, in which case I can use a simple 1/4-inch dowel that I've rounded one end on, and I'm just gonna hammer it down in there. Now, for everyone else that's using your actual weapon, you can actually use a coat hanger, this style of coat hanger that has kind of a wrapped cardboard surface on it. You're gonna cut this to be about, I don't know, 6 inches long and cut the wire off of it and then push in the edges so it kind of rounds a little bit. Then you can simply make a slit along one side of it all the way down to here. And that'll slide around the front sight and down into the holster. So this is a similar concept, but it doesn't have the slot cut in it to fit around the front sight. Stick it right in there. I'm gonna use the edge of my marble surface so that the very tip of the top of the holster can hang off the edge. Give it a few taps, help it into the center. And you're gonna leave a little bit of this exposed, that way you can pull it out later on. All right, on the back side of the holster, we need to make sure the belt slot is properly raised while we're doing the molding. So what I've done is I've cut out a piece of leather that's the same shape as my belt, the same width. It's 1.5 inches wide. I only need it to be 3 or so inches long for what I'm intending the use for. And the thickness is about twice as thick as my belt. So if you only have, the 7-8 ounce leather at home, you can probably use 2 to 3 pieces layered on each other to make something like this. Otherwise, if you don't want to go through that trouble, you can actually use your own belt. Just make sure after you push it through that the tip doesn't come too far into the trigger guard area and the rest of the belt is coming off in this direction. That way you have an area here where you can still mold everything and the belt won't be in the way. Okay, to do all the shaping on this holster, I just have a wooden dowel. It's very smooth, it's got a rounded tip, one side's more blunt. I also use a little tool. It's a pear-shaped tool for stamping leather. This will help in the trigger guard area. So basically you're gonna go around on most surfaces and rub the tool against the gun so that the leather compresses against it. So when I go to use the pear-shaped tool, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create this little groove right here. This helps catch the very edge of the front of the trigger guard so that the weapon will actually pop into place and be held there. So what I'm gonna do is I'm taking this, the wider end, and I'm pushing it down the front here, and I'm angling it so that it fades off as it goes backwards. And I'm just gonna kind of rub that forward and backward. Like that. So it makes this little indentation right at the front. You don't wanna go too far back because that indentation can actually catch the trigger itself, which is dangerous. All right, flip it over. And we're gonna do the same to the back side. Now we're going to do the same to the front of the trigger guard on this side as well. All right, before you remove the weapon from the holster, we're going to use a piece of wood. It's about 1.5 inches wide, about the width of your belt. It's got nice smooth edges on it. And I'm going to stick it into the belt slot. And that helps me curve this holster and mold that so it fits better when it sits on your hip. All right, so now we need to bake the shape into place. So we're gonna put it into an oven, heated at 165 degrees Fahrenheit. You're going to take the weapon out of the holster. You're gonna take out everything else. You're only gonna put the holster on a cool baking sheet into the oven and keep it there for about 30 minutes. Keep it well away from any of the heating elements in the oven. Once you've done that, you can take the holster out of the oven and let it sit drying next to a fan for the next 24 hours. After I remove the weapon, I like to take this little spot where I've made the indentations and give it a very subtle squeeze, just to help push it in a little bit. All right, so after I've baked the holster and then let it dry for another 24 hours, I will come back and show you guys how to finish the holster, and that'll be in the next video. I'll see you then.